Dear editors who ended a relationship with their best friend, what was your breaking point? When my dad was dying of stage 4 cancer, she just smiled and said, I didn't like him anyway. Like, in the same room as him. He was awake, and it was one of the last things he ever heard. Our friendship had been really codependent and unhealthy for years, but that was the sentence that made me realize that she wasn't just edgy and kind of cold, she was actually a bad person. I only met up with her one time after that, for closure. Edit, I was 21 at the time. Ditching me for a better something for the 100th time, while I waited outside a concert with his ticket. That's so awful. I ended my friendship with a friend because she decided to go to a music festival without me despite me literally asking her if she wanted to go and her saying she didn't want to because of this. People suck. I waited to see how long it would take for him to text me first. When it happens, I'll let you know. I'm doing that with all my friends right now. Noon has texted yet, going on 6 months. Edit, these are friends that I constantly would message, asking if they wanted to hang out or just to chat for a bit. Whether we spoke or hung out was fully dependent on me initiating it. So when I decided to step back, we stopped talking. Edit, for some context, by the time we stopped talking, it was the end of high school, and we had both become completely different from each other, so this wasn't sudden. I think I tried to hang on to the friendship simply because it was the longest one I had, which unfortunately wasn't reciprocated. Me. One day I realized he wasn't responding to my texts anymore. We live a few cities away from each other, so sometimes we wouldn't see each other for months. But it got longer. After I realized he was gone, I replayed all of our last moments and conversed together trying to figure out what happened. I searched up all I could find of him, and while I don't know the truth, my guess of what happened was that he had a series of major crises happen to him. Parents divorced, first unemployment after getting jobs effortless all of his life, GF of 7 years broke up with him, and maybe I didn't realize the impact it had on him. Retreading his steps, he was probably lonelier than he let on. Every time we hung out he was always upbeat and cheery. Now he's just gone from my life. He stopped using social media, even Reddit. I don't know where he lives, though some of our mutual friends tell me he's alright. When I realized her childhood/family was too dysfunctional, and she was taking her anger/frustration out on me, since mine was not. She was always belittling me and talking over me, and I just realized it wasn't worth it. She was funny, and we liked the same things, but if I spent more than 2 hours with her, I came home feeling worn down. I've been there. It's that moment of realizing I wasn't all that introverted. I just had terrible friends. Same here. My best friend, since elementary school, fell hard into drugs and alcohol. She would embarrass me being wasted and trying to get high off stupid shit around my other friends. The final straw for me was she did drugs and drank while she was pregnant, had a baby who was developmentally delayed, and didn't take care of him properly, leaving her elderly grandpa to pick up the slack. After I cut ties with her, she ended up having another kid. She got both of them taken away. She ended up in jail a few times. Not my problem. Wow, this happened just today for me and my best friend. When we ended our relationship, it was a long process of me not being able to stand up for myself and to just apologize for my actions, no matter what I did, and them being the one who made me feel bad about a lot of things. At the beginning of August 2020 we took a break from our friendship, and I took a look back at the years my friend and I had, and realized that our relationship was pretty toxic. And despite 2 weeks of silence and a few days after coming back for another chance of being friends, we both agreed that our relationship and friendship was over. It took 6 whole years for me to realize that that person wasn't all who I thought it was, but I'm now looking ahead and gonna start working on myself. I got sober and turned my life around. She wanted to stay in the same spot on her couch, pretend her issues didn't exist, and make someone else responsible for her sobriety. She was firmly entrenched in the belief she was a victim and couldn't comprehend being in charge of her own life. It got to the point I was having anxiety before I went to hang out with her, and I couldn't take it anymore. He ran off with my GF after swearing for weeks that he would never do such a thing. The best part was that I was best man at his wedding, and he was married at the time. Honestly, looking back on it, I'm glad it happened. I got to kick two pieces of shit out of my life on the same day. I met my wife 2 years later, and I've never been happier. Edit. Holy moly, did this blow up overnight. Thanks for all the awards and such. I'm glad to have struck a chord with so many people. And thanks for all the replies and well wishes. I hope everyone gets an experience like I got, and can make lemonade out of lemons. My childhood best friend was always ditching me at the last minute for any better opportunity that came up. Babysitting jobs, sleepovers with more popular girls at school, etc. She literally told me to my face, "We can always make plans another time." Well, excuse me for thinking that my best friend would actually want to honor her commitments to me. Enough was enough when she called me during the evening on a day she was absent from school, demanding to know why I hadn't called her to see if she was okay. I had broken up with my boyfriend that day, but she didn't give a shit. She just assumed I would always be there for her when she wanted me, but she'd kick me to the curb when I wasn't any use to her. The sad thing is that I wanted to always be there for her. When things were good, she was an amazing friend, and we had so many great times together. I still think back and wonder if ending our friendship was the right thing to do. But she didn't treat me right, and I finally had to leave. I have never had the same BFF/sister level friendship with anyone else. But I no longer invest my loyalty where I know I won't get it back. Edit. A word. In the space of a few months, my mother died, my first marriage imploded, I moved 3k miles away from everything I knew, having a miscarriage in a tiny town motel along the way. After 3 weeks of ghosting me, after 25 years of supposed bfness, she told me, though I'd never complained or asked advice or for support, BC I'm overly self-contained weirdo, that my life choices were stressing her out and she couldn't be friends with me. She reached out about 2 years later via email, and although that was 8 years ago, I'm still too angry to respond. I just got out of the psych ward a week ago from a suicide attempt. The guy I had been seeing, who I had been friends with for a year and a half before we got relations, he ghosted me, as did probably a quarter of my friends. I have been working on myself every day and staying sober and all that good stuff, and I know that whatever will be, but my god does it fucking sting when I think of everyone who is avoiding me. Gay best friend in high school. I came out to him as bi. He said, "No, you're not. You're gay or you're straight. You have to choose." My ex-boyfriend said this to me in passing. Like, I didn't even say anything to prompt it. He just said out of nowhere, "Being bi is greedy. You should just pick one or the other." It was weird. House got robbed in college and somebody made off with like 3k that I was saving up on tips. Found out 2 years later it was him, and the twisted part was he was there for me the entire time from like 30 minutes after I had found my house and called it in. Never suspected him till I found out, and it all made sense. Sick narcissistic fuck. He'll eventually fuck up his own life without me wishing ill upon him. I don't need that kind of poison in my life. I'm trying to be a better person every day, not worse. My former best friend was oof. We are mostly on good terms now, but there was a time where we fucking hated each other's guts. He had anger issues and couldn't think straight when he got mad. I had the horrible trait of always wanting the last laugh. The man says something stupid, I correct him. Then he gets mad, then I get mad back, because I didn't want him having the satisfaction of thinking he's right, and we got off at each other. The man even stabbed me with the pencil in the eye once. I'd be half blind if it weren't for the fact that he wasn't paying attention and stabbed me with the eraser end, and didn't hit me dead center in the eye, just very slightly to the side of it. That was the final breaking point. Again, he and I have gotten over that, and we are on good terms, and he's managed his anger while I got rid of my stupid little mentality. Thankfully, I have a new current best friend, and she's the most relatable person I know, and he's doing well in the friend department too, so happy ending. Walked in on him fucking my wife. 0.25 years of friendship down the toilet for some pussy. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Thanks for the gold, kind Redditor. Now to answer some questions. Yeah, I clocked him, divorced her. Got a really good divorce attorney. During the mediation she tried to get alimony from me playing the victim. The cell phones were in my name, so my lawyer had no problem getting all the texts between the two of them, and during that mediation my lawyer started reading them off, and about halfway down the page her lawyer said to stop. She got the house. I didn't want it, even though I probably could have got it if I wanted, so due to the circumstances, divorce got finalized, and I walked away free. I did go down a deep dark hole drinking away my problems. Left the job I was at and started a new career. Talk about turnabout being fair play. A few years after the incident I was at one of my favorite watering holes and I guess she was driving by, seen my Jeep in front of the bar, walked in with a black eye. I looked at her and said, so I guess things with you and scumbag are going well. She told me she lost everything and was sorry and then asked me for money. I laughed at her and told her not a chance. I met a wonderful woman and had my daughter who is now 5 years old in the light of my life. So to both my exes, friend and wife, thank you. Continued to drink and agitate his unchecked bipolar disorder despite my pleas and everyone else's pleas who loved him. He became violent, risked my own safety and health many times, and started hanging around shady people. For a long time I blamed myself for the spiral he set into motion. What if I had been more patient, gotten his family involved when he started getting really bad? Just anything. I have finally found peace with the fact my own mental health is just as bad, and I did the best I could. The person I knew him to be is now dead, and although I mourn nearly every day for that, I truly hope the new person he is finds his way in life. I just don't wish to be around to see it. Whatever you're going through, op, I wish you the best. Addiction. I tried to support him at first. I confronted him, took part in an intervention, checked up on him. All I got in return was someone who lied to my face and stole whatever he could get off me. If you ever had to deal with an addict that you loved, you know how mentally and emotionally draining it can be. I have no regrets. I put in as much as I could. I'm not going to harm my life in order to save his. If he ever gets clean I will be there for him, but I will do so cautiously. Unfortunately I feel like the next time I see him, he will be in his casket. She had this massive crush on a very nice guy who tried to let her down gently the best that he could. I don't remember the exact details, but I started taking his side because she was becoming overly obsessive with him despite me trying to convince her to move on and that he wasn't interested. She stopped talking to me for at least a month. The nail in the coffin was a month I started dating my now wife, who she did not get along with at all. She constantly played the victim in whatever negative interaction she had, and it just wore me out to the point where I intentionally started letting go. We were both larger gay guys, but I had a better dating record / pull despite being more reserved and heavier than he was. He started to treat me like the ugly friend that he was doing a favor for when we went out on the town. After I ended the friendship, he tried to reconnect via a new friend and ended up just alienating the guy from us both. It was sad because he'd obviously lost his sobriety and wanted to blame it on how I treated him. It taught me a lot about how to deal with manipulative people, and I'm better off for it. He was trying to make an affair happen with my son's mom, inviting her to keep him company on a long drive to this job he had at the time. I knew this because she told me about it and how it made her uncomfortable that he would call the house when people still hand landlines, asking for me at times he fully fucking knew I was at work. It sucks because his now wife was my best friend in high school for a while, and I never once knew about her as anything but a friend because I met her through him as the girl he was crazy about. Like friends are supposed to behave. In that sense I lost 2 good friends, since hanging with her would mean him being in my life. She made a cult with my sister, an actual cult. The new age white savior, cultural appropriation, pseudo-psychological circle jerking, offering healing modalities involving ancestors, and taking ayahuasca, and getting dysentery, and making crap sexual and codependent relationship decisions, while the kids have no beds of their own, and get untreated long-term lice infestations type. They bonded over how I never talked about anything real and my life was pointless, and they couldn't stand me working to providing a stable home life, with consistent food and shelter, and clothing for my kids. The cult dissolved for lack of funds, direction, substance, and sanity. They don't speak to each other anymore, and I don't speak to either of them. To be honest though, they were always crap friends, so it's for the best. When I was pregnant with my first kid, everything inside of me screamed when I was around her, and I pushed it aside. So, if you're asking because you're having doubts about someone, those doubts are probably well founded and will be real clear in retrospect. In hindsight, there was a long list of manipulation from him and abuse, but the thing that made me snap was after not speaking to me for a year, after I literally nearly died in hospital, which he didn't seem to really care about. He asked me to only mention good things about him to his new girlfriend, and gave me suggestions of lies I should tell her he is like. When she came over to talk to me at a party, I mentioned nice things about him, then went to change the topic. We ended up on mental health talks, and my friend mentioned how I was a drama queen for having mental health issues after trauma and illness, like I nearly died at 17, and have been in chronic pain since nearly dying. I basically called him out in front of her and my other friends, explaining that when I went on antidepressants when I was 16, I asked him to keep an eye on me as they could make me suicidal. He responded with, "Well, if you are suicidal, just kill yourself." Then she broke up with him, and I haven't spoken for 7 years now. She did something very hurtful, and when I told her it hurt me, she said that it was mean-spirited of me to tell her that she hurt my feelings. Then I started to think about it and realized that she never took responsibility for anything she did. She had to be the hero in every scenario, but if she couldn't have hero, she'd take victim. I started to clue into a lot of things, like how she would surround herself with people who she thought she looked good next to, and if things were going well for one of her friends, she would be visibly annoyed. She would stand on your shoulders to make herself feel tall. It was exhausting, and I'm so glad that I don't have to be around her anymore. I got pregnant unexpectedly. I was freaking out because I'm already disabled, and at that point I didn't feel like I had any job skills. I worried out loud to her that I was going to have to rely on financial aid. She told me only awful people were on any form of government assistance, including the fact that my college was paid for thanks to my dad's service in the Navy, and I needed to abort. That accepting help meant I was a terrible mom and my kid would never break the cycle I would start by doing that. I just left the table, figuratively and literally. Haven't spoken since. Kind of wasn't me who left the friendship, but I made sure to disappear all evidence of me in her life. Were pretty mismatched in the first. She is 10 years older than me, but she was pretty immature, so we got along fine. Until I got a boyfriend and lost my virginity first. I started spending more time with my boyfriend and a few mutual friends our age. One day, I agreed to go to dinner with her after going to the movies with my BF and some friends. The movie ended a few minutes later than listed, and I texted her the moment the lights turned on. She got all hissy and mad and went on an entire self-pity national tour about my disrespectful behavior towards her. She took the bus home that day without waiting for me. She ignored my texts and refused to come out of her room when I went across the street to check on her. Eventually I had enough of her bratty behavior and stopped all contact with her. I even specifically moved out of the neighborhood when my lease was up. I was going through severe depression. Just couldn't muster the energy to even shower. She kept asking to hang out, and I told her I wasn't feeling well. My depression is consuming me. And she said, well, we all go through things in life. If you were a real friend, you'd take time out of your day to make sure I was okay. So I got really worried that something bad happened. I apologized and asked her what was wrong, and she said that the guy she's cheating on her BF with isn't being attentive enough. Anyway, stopped being her friend and continued wallowing in my depression. My lifelong best friend of 17 years was secretly talking shit about me behind my back throughout the years because I made better choices than she did and chose a different life path that lead me to success. She stopped answering calls and texts, and I found out though her sister just how long she had pretended to be my friend for. Realized she had never made any effort in 17 years to contact me first or actually be a friend, and immediately blocked her. Last I heard, she's still doing drugs and bumming money for her and her willingly unemployed husband. Learned the hard way that just because someone has been in your life for years doesn't constitute them actually being your friend, let alone a best friend. I realized every conversation was all about her never-ending drama, and terrible life choices. I felt way too old to keep talking about her life. We were in our 30s and her life was like a bipolar 20-year-old. We had been friends for almost 10 years and had been so close once. She had been there for me during the hardest and darkest time in my life, more so than even my family. But as time went on, I realized that every conversation was all about her. I don't think she cared about me at all anymore. She just was using me as her personal therapist. It came to a point when I found myself dreading her calls, like what insane drama is she calling about this time? It was just exhausting spending time with her. I just couldn't put any more of my time and emotional well-being into such a one-sided friendship. I still love her, and I miss the friend she once was.